Sonic X Shadow Generations is genuinely one of the best Sonic games. And honestly, it might even be my favorite, but I can't say that's set in stone 100%. But I want to open the video by saying that when it comes to at least Shadow Generations, I cannot think of a single Sonic game that I had an equally fun experience with. I loved Frontiers when I played it, I loved Colors when I played it, I love a lot of other Sonic games when I played them. But this game, dude, it's different. It didn't have those low points. It was just insanely fun the entire time, and very few Sonic games have ever been able to achieve that. Not the adventure games, not Unleashed, not Frontiers, even though I love that game, it still had some really low lows. But honestly, the only two contenders that I can really think of from my experience was Colors and Generations. Even if you don't love those games, which honestly, I mean, I can see it, but even if those games aren't your favorite, I feel like we can mostly all agree on the fact that these games don't really have very large low points. They're pretty much just fun from the start of the game to the end of the game, and this game is the same way, but honestly, I had more fun than any of those games. So instead of just discussing 2024 glazing, let's actually get into the game, so here we go. I feel like before getting into the stages, I want to discuss the open world, because this is a really good part of the game. I was shocked with the sheer scale and quality of this portion of the game. Running around the open world is actually really fun. Now, the platforming sections aren't exactly the craziest thing ever, but honestly, they're better than most of the ones in Frontiers, to be honest. Shadow's movement here is also pretty solid. While he doesn't have the exact, he doesn't have that insane turning you had in Frontiers where you literally never lost your ability to make a 360 no matter how fast you were going, which I did like in that game, but in some ways it kind of did feel oversensitive. I mean, I know that that's kind of like a sliders thing, so it's kind of hard to say what Frontiers' definitive control is. I guess going off the high speed style, it controlled well, but this game, I kind of liked that they made it a little bit harder to turn, because sometimes that felt like a little bit of an issue, but I never felt like that ability to turn helped me that much. Obviously, I need to be able to turn, and Shadow Generations has that. I can still easily turn, but I kind of like that it's less sensitive. It makes it feel less overly sensitive, if you know what I mean. Now, I've stated how much I like this open world, but let me actually tell you what you do in it. Just like Generations, all of the stages are contained here, and all of their challenges are raised up on platforms above them, just like Generations. It's the same exact thing. But the rest of the space of the open world is dedicated to opening chests. That's the main thing you're going to be finding in this open world. Now, that sounds pretty boring, but honestly, it's really fun to find these chests. But you don't just have to find them. You also have to have the ability to open them, and this is the cool part, because there are 3 different types of chests, as you can see here, and they're color-coded, and they give you different stuff. But if you try to open these chests, you might have some difficulty if you don't have the correct collectibles, and this is the cool part, because you actually have to find these collectibles in the stages. They're hidden, just like red rings. You have to find them. Now, they're always typically just on a pathway. You just have to find the right path, so it's not the most difficult thing ever, but shoot, there you go. That's how you do it. I love that so much, because it connects the stages and the open world. They're no longer super disconnected, and it's not just like, oh, if you do well in stage, you get a collectible that allows you to advance in the open world like Frontiers did. Now, that was fine enough in that game, but I really like the idea of inside the stages themselves, you have to do something that affects the open world. That's a really cool concept that they've explored here, and I think it works incredibly well. You're also going to find machine parts all around the open world. There's a ton of these things, and you're going to find Orbot and Cubot here, just waiting for you to give them right away. And I was honestly wondering what this stupid rocket was going to be. I was kind of excited. I was like, whoa, what's it going to give me? It's a cuckoo clock, by the way. It does absolutely nothing. It's just like, hey, you can collect 80 machine parts if you want. This is such a troll, and I love it, because right at the start of the game's like, oh, by the way, make sure you remember to collect machine parts. They may come in useful later. Then they straight up just aren't useful. Another thing you'll find pretty often in the open world are these little challenges. Now, these are just little things where you have to collect rings or find a little timer bomb thing. You just have to get to a certain place in time. That's kind of all it is. And these are decently fun. But the notable thing about these isn't necessarily the challenges themselves, but I really like how visible they are in the world. For example, so in Frontiers, you just had like the question mark thing. Like that was kind of it. It was simple and it worked. It did the job. Don't really have anything to complain about. But in this game, I like how they did it, because now you have this like floating purple orb that is really visible. Like you can see it, like it's right there. I mean, it's not like it fills your whole screen, but it's definitely right there. You can easily see it. So you walk over to it and bam, it shrinks down to the size that you need to step on it. And that is a really great system. It makes it where it's visible from far away, so you can say, oh hey, there's a challenge over there. And once you go check it out, you just walk on top of it and bam, you've activated whatever challenge it is. That's a really simple system, but I really like that. It's very easy to see where challenges are, and if you feel like doing one, it's like, oh yeah, there's one right there. I can just do it if I feel like it. The open zone is also a great place to test out all of your Doom powers as you're given them. It's plenty of free reign to just mess around and see what you can do with them, especially Doom Morph, because that junk, you actually gotta like train up for that, because it wasn't very obvious to me how it worked at the start, so I probably should have taken some more time in the open zone before I like crashed out on Chaos Island. I was about to tweak out. It was ridiculous. But we'll get back to Chaos Island. Trust me, we'll be back to that. So overall, the open world is not the, the greatest thing ever, but I think it does have a lot of great ideas that I would love for them to do in the next open zone game. It has some great concepts and ideas and ways to evolve the formula, just take it a little bit a step further than what Frontiers was doing, and I love it. So while it might not be the most interesting thing, and really the main thing you're doing here is just collecting concept art and music, which I can't complain about. That's fine. I'm happy with it. I like it too. But it's still really, really fun, and I think it does evolve on the open zone formula a decent bit. So I'm pretty happy with it. So fun. Awesome. All right, so let's dive into the stages and all of their missions. First off, we have Space Colony Ark. This is an amazing introduction to the game. It really is. This game sets you up correctly for what the rest of the game is going to be. It is a really, really fun level. Both acts are great. Act 2 is really fun with the introduction of the Doom Wing, which you actually don't truly get till the end of the game, which is funny because it's actually just given to you in this one act. Like, truthfully, Doomwing is just an in-game collectible that like actually totally dissolves levels. Like, what is happening? I'm just skipping everything. The best way I can describe this level is that it is an amazing introduction to everything Shadow Generations is going for, level design-wise and just flash-wise. I mean, in every way, this feels like this is the best introduction to the game. It really does describe what the rest of the game is going to be. I feel like there's no like fall off or like shift in level design idea. No, this is just the foundation that the rest of the game is built on. And when I say foundation, I do mean that literally, because this is my least favorite level in the game. I mean, it really is. The level that we were all making videos on with how great the level design was, and it's like, this is just the start of the fun. This is the low point of the game, if you will. That's crazy to me. That's what I'm saying. If that does not speak to this game's quality, I do not know what does. Because this is the lowest point of the game. Now, it is nowhere near bad. It's still crazy fun. This is a really, really fun level. I love this stage. It's really fun. But if I really had to think, I would rather play any other stage in this game than this. So, like, oh my gosh, dude. This game, I don't know how they're doing this. Not my Sonic team. Another thing worth pointing out is the Act 2s and how the camera works in those stages. Because in the 3D stages, it obviously works like you think it would, duh, it's not that hard. But in the 2D stages, they do something that we have not seen in a long time. And that is angle the camera forward so that you can see where you're going. The last game that actually did that well is Unleashed. We have not seen this good camera panning in 2D in so long. Now, I get it, because if you're locked in that 2D perspective, you might be tempted to not angle the camera so that you can keep things off screen, and it would kind of make the game appear more polished. But this game, they knew that it's hard to see forward when you're in a 2D plane. It really is. So pointing that camera, just turning it towards the direction you're going, does insane work for the flow and feel of the game. Because now, I didn't ever have a moment in this game where something just came right at me in a 2D section that I would have never seen coming. That never happened. Now, did I die in a 2D section? I mean, yeah, but you know, it never felt like something unexpected that I could not see happened. That was never an issue. Visibility was never an issue. My reaction time was probably an issue, but I was always able to see something before it was ever a danger to me, even if I did screw up the jump. You get what I'm saying. So that is my thoughts on the main 2 acts of Space Colony Ark. But we also have another thing to discuss, and that is the missions. And before I actually go into the missions for this stage, I want to discuss how the missions work in this game, because they're very different than how they work in Generations. In Generations, you had a lot of missions, but like so little of them were actually required in the slightest. It's kind of ridiculous. You basically had to do like none of these. Like it was shocking how little you had to do. But in this game, you have to do all of the missions. Now that may sound like ridiculous padding or like some bad thing, but honestly, I like that fact because all of the missions are really, really fun. I don't think I had a mission that I hated. Most of the missions have creative level design or an interesting gimmick or are just kind of whatever. You know, it's like a 30-second level. Like, I can't be upset at it. Like, whatever. And a lot of these mission levels have plenty of opportunities to be optimized and mastered, just like the main levels. Some of my favorite missions were actually ones I didn't think I would like. I thought I would really like the ones focused on chaos control or some other gimmick or just the platforming sections, because some of them are like, go through this thing with one ring or whatever, and those are fun, but honestly my favorites had to involve with defeating a set amount of enemies or like destroying these like balloon things. These are pretty cool. So honestly, I know that like all of the missions being required is like padding or whatever, but there's way less missions, and I think the missions that they did make are clearly way more effort put into them than comparison to Generations. Like these are like actual dedicated missions. I feel like, I don't know, I can't complain. I think it was actually an improvement this way. I'm kind of glad that they make you go through all of them. So, I mean, I see it as a good thing, but I can see that as padding, if you will, but it's a pretty short game, so honestly, it's really not much of padding because, yeah, the game isn't that long, so there you go. Now on to Rail Canyon. This is a really, really solid stage. Both acts are really, really good, and I like it just a little bit more than Space Colony Ark, so it's like second worst to be fair, but it's still really good. Like I'm saying, there is no bad level in this game. There isn't. The worst of this game that I ever experienced was like kind of okay. That was like the lowest point of the entire game, was like okay. Like that's it. I never had a bad moment with this game. So Rail Canyon, while not being my favorite, is still a really solid stage, and I think with this level, it's time to point out the Doom City transitions, because holy smokes, this one is ridiculous. I do not know how they achieved this, and I love that fact, because it looks weird. It does actually look like off-putting, like it actually does look like reality distorting. It's achieved so perfectly. Everything about this is great, from the animation to Doom showing up with those dynamic camera angles, all of it. And I think one of my favorite details is the chromatic aberration actually becoming way, way, way stronger in these distorted areas, because it actually feels like everything is glitching out. And I love that fact, because once you get back to normal gameplay, you know, the screen isn't very distorted. There's some chromatic aberration just because it looks cool, but once you're in those Doom City areas, it is extremely strong there. It is very visible, the chromatic aberration, and I love that fact. That's such a cool detail. Bro, that's awesome, dude. But overall, both acts of Rail Canyon are really solid. Act 1 is really good, and I would say Act 2, you know, it's 2D, so I don't like it as much, but it's still really, really solid, and I like a lot of the gimmicks that this 2D stage has. It's really fun still. I also think now's a good opportunity to state that not only is the camera very dynamic in the 2D stages, it's also not afraid to go briefly 3D or show you some sick automation, which a lot of 2D and other Sonic games wouldn't do. There wouldn't be a cool automation section that the camera would actually leave that 2D plane to show you, but this game has that in spades. The 2D stages feel dynamic and feel like they have almost as many cool moments as the 3D stages. Now, not as many, but it's shocking how much they packed in these 2D levels. I would not be expecting this of any 2D stage, but that's why they don't feel like boring, because a lot of people really don't like 2D in the modern games, and it's like, I understand that, right? You know, you came here for a 3D Sonic game, you know, I get the whole argument. I understand. It makes sense. That's fair. But I think that 2D isn't the problem. I think it's that the levels are uninteresting. 2D lends itself to levels that are less interesting because typically the 2D is added there to pad the game out. I gotta be honest. Love colors, but that 2D is there to pad the game out. I think that 2D is fun as crap, but it still is a little bit of an issue, and I don't blame anyone for not liking the game because of that. But this game makes the 2D interesting. It is dynamic. There's a flow state to be had. It all works together, and it feels like the 2D, just because it's in that two-dimensional plane, doesn't mean that it's less interesting. Now, I would say that most of the time it is, but it's not afraid to be treated in the same manner as a 3D level, and I love that fact so much. And a great example of everything I'm talking about is Rail Canyon Act 2. Like, look at this! You will not see a 2D stage in almost any other Sonic game ever pulling this type of stuff, and I love it. Now, I'm not gonna act like it's never been done before. Other Sonic games have had this type of thing, but it's still cool to see it come back in spades. It's super fun. I love this stuff. I don't care what people say, automation is important. If you're going to take control away from the player, show me something awesome, and I love that this game is actually showing me cool stuff. Automation isn't cool when you show me something stupid or lame that just, it's like, well, why did you just take control away from me? I could have done that myself. But this game, I feel that when it takes control away from the player, it is warranted. There is very few times where it's like, oh man, I could have just done that manually. It's almost always some cool thing or something that just couldn't be achieved with the movement. It's just not how the framework works. So I just had to bring all that up because this was a great opportunity to bring it up, because the 2D and the automation in this game went far beyond my expectations, and I would say is probably the best example of 2D in a boost game and automation in a boost game, if I've got to be honest. On to Kingdom Valley. This stage is really, really good. Now, Act 1, we've already seen a ton of footage of it. We've actually seen every flipping pathway. We've seen everything, but it's still fun as crap. When I played this level, I was having a blast. It is super duper fun. Getting to see the water section, getting to use the eagles. It's just, that is the comeback of probably one of my favorite level environments in the whole series. It's not my #1 favorite, which a lot of people have that opinion, and honestly, that's valid. This is such a sick location. This game just brought back what I think people wanted 06 to have. It really does feel that way. This feels like what 06 could have been. Now, obviously, it's not an adventure-styled game. It is a boost game, so it's different, but you know what I'm saying. They finally brought the stage back and did it justice. Now, Generations did a good job with Crisis City, but I'm sorry, Crisis City is so mid in comparison to this stage. It's honestly not even funny. Crisis City is so washed in comparison to Kingdom Valley, dude. Kingdom Valley is that stage from 06. I still think it's weird why they picked Crisis City. That never made any sense to me, because Kingdom Valley is literally on the box art for the game. Why would you not pick that stage? I was about to crash out, but then I realized if Crisis City wasn't in Generations, we would not have Kingdom Valley and Shadow Generations, so I'm not complaining anymore. I'm happy, I'm fine. While most of the levels take good advantage of the Doom powers, I would say Kingdom Valley Act 1 takes the best advantage of the Doom Blast of the entire game. Dude, this pathway right here is a game changer. This right here, when I saw it, I was like, Sonic Team is truly back. When I saw that you could skip this right here and just break right through the glass right there, I knew that Sonic Team knew what they were doing. I was like, okay, this game is gonna be great. That right there, that was the final nail in the coffin to any suspicions I had of this game not being good. It was like, wow, I am so greatly impressed by this type of thing. Now, is it just one pathway using one mechanic? Sure, but you would not be seeing this in like any other Sonic game. You're not gonna be finding this anywhere, and that is what makes it so special. It's not that it's that crazy on its own, but the fact that we have this is almost like a domino effect. It's like if we have this, then we're probably gonna have these things and these other good level design traits, because if they're really doing these type of pathways, they gotta be cooking up. That's all I'm saying. And trust me, they did. This level is super fun. There's like 3 different situations you can use Doom Blast. Like, this is the level for that Doom power, which is funny because you also spend a good portion of the stage using Doom Surf. Like, man, Kingdom Valley Act 1 is an incredible stage, so I love it, but Act 2 is also nothing to sleep on. It's actually my favorite 2D level in this whole game. Like, goodness gracious, Kingdom Valley was cooking. I'm not even like the biggest like 06 potential guy. I actually kind of think 06 didn't really have as much potential as people make it out to be. Like, it didn't have all that. I'm sorry, but Kingdom Valley is so goated, dude. Like, overall, dude, everything about this stage is awesome. I love the environment. I honestly love the remixes. They're really good too, and the level design and the usage of Doom Blast in 3D and in 2D. Don't forget that 2D, it's still used well there. So yeah, Kingdom Valley is flipping goated. I love Kingdom Valley. And I like all of its missions as well. These are fun, you know, just like Rail Canyon. I mean, I think all the missions in this game are really solid, so. Now on to Sunset Heights. Holy smokes. They cooked. They cooked. I was going to go on to something. No, they cooked. That is the first thing I got to say. Because this level, they needed to make it insanely good. They had to, because they had to fully beat the Forces allegations. Here's the thing. I know a lot of people said that they probably wouldn't want a level from Forces, and I kind of get that, but, you know, the pool of levels to pick for a Shadow game is really small, so I don't know what else they would have picked, but I'm so glad that we got Sunset Heights. Because this right here is a direct one-to-one comparison. You can compare the 2 levels. The one from Shadow Generations, and the one from Forces. Or heck, I'll even give you, I'll give you a little boost. I'll give you the better version of the level, which is obviously the one in Episode Shadow. Let's do that. They are not comparable. Everything is better in Shadow Generations. The visuals, the music, the level design, the gimmicks, everything is better. Everything. Literally everything. I cannot think of a single aspect that Forces had better. Not a single one. And dude, this fully proved that we are out of that Forces type of era. We're completely out of it by a direct one-to-one comparison. There is no denying it anymore. Sonic Team knows what they are doing. They fully defeated any sort of, I guess, allegations of Forces, for lack of better terms. Like, they fully pushed that off the table. That is not even a thought in my mind, is if it will be like Forces. That is not a single thought in my brain. Not at all, because they have fully disproven any sort of thought like that. There is no reason to think that anymore, and that's what makes this level so special to me. But not only that, the level itself is also one of my favorites from this game. It's not just pretty good, it's not just great, but it's honestly outstanding. This level is incredibly fun. The usage of chaos control and different pathways, and also using Doom Blast to get some of these multiple pathways, it's just... it's incredible. Sonic Team is so back, and this level absolutely proves it. I know that was a long rant to go on, but this is the direct one-to-one comparison from Forces to this game. So there is no truly comparing them, because the quality shift should be obvious. Shadow Generations is so much better, and it is unreal. But that's all in Act 1. Once again, Act 2 is pretty fun. I actually really like these like little spring things. You got a Chaos Spear, or sorry, Doom Spear, before you use them. It's pretty fun. I like it. You also get to use the Doom Surf in 2D, which is, I was not expecting them to do that. Pretty cool, actually. Once again, them using Doom Surf also automatically makes it better than Forces, because it actually used the sewer gimmick. The idea of it actually being a city and then you going into the sewers, like they actually used that as part of the level. Next up, we have Chaos Island. Now, when I first played the level, I thought this was kind of mid. I didn't really like this stage. Doom Morph was kind of like, look at this gameplay, man. Doom Morph was kind of cooking me. But now, coming back to this level, like, it's top 3 favorite stages from this entire game. Like, this really is the Planet Wisp of Shadow Generations. Because I did not like Planet Wisp when I first played it, but then I came back to it and I really warmed up to it. Same thing here. While obviously that first playthrough is still important, but truthfully, it's not because I didn't like the level. It's honestly because I'm gonna say skill issue right now. I'm actually gonna say that. I'm gonna come out and say it, that it's because I didn't know how the Doom Morph actually worked. But now that I actually know how Doom Morph functions and I actually messed around with it, the level is super duper fun. It just wasn't fun because I jumped right into the stage. The other Doom powers were pretty intuitive, but this one, it takes a second to adjust to. It doesn't work exactly like you think it would. After coming back to it with a better understanding of Chaos Island's mechanics and especially how Doom Morph functions, this level is crazy fun stage. Love everything about it. Even that stupid remix, it works really well in context. I'm sorry, like, yeah, it sounds goofy with the stupid dubstep sounds, but it works in the correct context of the stage. And when you're like sweating bullets trying to get that new record time on this stage, heck yeah, I need some dubstep flipping annoying noises in the background. Like, heck yeah, I need that crap. Act 2 is pretty interesting of Chaos Island. I really do like that they included the section that you see in Frontiers, this like green like water area. That's pretty cool because that was one of my favorite environment elements of Chaos Island, and it's, I hate that wasn't really part of the level, but it's still cool that we get to see it in the background. That's a really nice touch. I also am a pretty big fan of this like gondola mechanic. This is pretty cool. You jump on the platform, you go down, you jump off it, you go up. Like, it's pretty simple, but I'm cooked, man. Of course the Colors fan likes the standing on a platform gimmick. Like, of course I do. Dadgummit. I'll also say Doom Morph gets some pretty good usage in 2D. Is getting to launch off this little disc. Like, that's cool. Stuff like that is really fun to pull off. So overall, Chaos Island, definitely a banger level, but it took me a good minute to warm up to it. It's not like my favorite, but it's definitely one of the better levels, particularly Act 1. Act 2 is kind of alright. I mean, it's whatever. It's fine. Don't hate it. Pretty solid. Now on to Radical Highway. Now this is the final level of the game, the Eggman Land of the game, if you will. Now it's nowhere near as hard as Eggman Land, but it has that finality to it. And I love that fact because instead of being one act that's 3D, one act that is 2D, we have 2 fully 3D acts, with Act 1 being decently difficult, and Act 2 actually ramping things up to probably be the most difficult part of the game. That is awesome. Now, these levels are also pretty long, too. It'll probably take you over 5 minutes on each of these levels on your first try, and that's why they're flipping awesome. Now, I'm not one of these, like, difficulty junkies. I don't really care. Like, I don't really need a game to be difficult. I just need it to be engaging. I just want the game to give me stuff to do. I don't really care if it's that difficult. I usually prefer games on the easier-ish side, but I love this type of stuff. That's what I'm saying. I like when the final level actually does have some challenge to it. This isn't like exceptionally difficult. You're not gonna be sweating bullets the entire time, but you definitely gotta focus. I mean, you gotta lock in if you want to get a good time on this stage. And it is one of my favorite things. It's easy to beat, but hard to master, and this level is a huge showcase of that, because beating the level itself isn't really that hard. If you just take the lower paths, you're gonna be fine. It's alright, you'll beat it. It's not too big of a deal, and with this game not having lives, you're eventually gonna get through it. Like, it's just gonna happen. It's not that bad. But to master it is actually very hard. That takes a lot of replays and a lot of memorization, and it's fun. It really is. It is super duper fun to come back to both of these acts because they both have interesting things to offer, although Act 2 is definitely my favorite. And unlike any of the other stages in the game, this has no missions, no nothing. It is just 2 fully 3D acts that are the final levels, and I love that fact. It really stands out. These are special. These really aren't just like, oh, that was the last level, okay, beat up the final boss. Say what you will about Generations, but that was absolutely Planet Wisp. For me, since Chaos Island kind of compares to what I think of Planet Wisp and Generations, to be honest, I wish Generations had that final level feeling that Shadow Generations has. That's what I really like about Radical Highway in this game. It has that final level feeling to it. Generations doesn't have that. You just have the kind of alright level that, you know, kind of grew on me, and then, oh, there we go, the game's over. You know, 2 bosses, bam, you're done. I was like, wow, okay, like we're done already? So I'm glad that they added this stage. Not only does it have finality, it also really ties everything together, and it doesn't really end on the kind of lower-ish note that I was having from Chaos Island, because I didn't really love it that much when I played it. But obviously, like I'm saying, I gotta keep making sure it's clear that I did warm up on this stage. So, you know, it is how it is. So that is my thoughts on all of the stages. Now on to the bosses of this game. Now, there are only 4 bosses, but they are really, really solid. I'm glad that they didn't, like, skip out on bosses, because the thing is, with this game having way less stages in comparison to Generations, they did manage to fit in just as many bosses. Now, obviously, there's not the rival battles anymore. It still is only 3 bosses and a final boss, but hey, I'm not complaining. I'm glad they were able to fit these in. So let's start off with the Bio Lizard. The Bio Lizard is by far the worst boss in this game. Now, it's not awful or anything, it's just kind of okay. I really love everything it does, though. This is definitely the best version of the Bio Lizard in terms of boss fights, for sure. This is really, really fun still. I love this final attack, dude. That's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't skip out on the bosses, even though this isn't my favorite. This is still, it's pretty solid. I think it's fun, you know, using Chaos Control to dodge the shockwaves on the ground, you know, it's fun. I like this boss. Metal Overlord is a huge step up. I did not think I was gonna like this boss that much since, you know, Doom Surf. I thought it'd be kind of weird, but no, dude, it's so fun, dude. It is so fun, dude. You know, it was fun on my first playthrough, but it gets more fun the more you play it, especially when you play the hard modes of the bosses, which we will get back to that. Give me a second. But yeah, this boss is incredible. The second phase is really interesting, and it's a big switch up, and it's just everything about this boss is really, really fun. Taking good advantage of the ramps to be able to attack him, and then also using Chaos Control to get on this pathway to be able to attack him. It's just, it all works together incredibly well. It's a really fun boss. It is incredible. On to Mephiles. Okay, so I'm not a big Mephiles guy, right? I'm sorry, y'all's goat is kind of a fraud. This guy kind of sucks. I've never been a Mephiles guy. I don't really like him that much. I just think he's kind of okay. But this boss, bro, it's so raw, bro. Oh my god, bro, it's so it's so fun, dude. This is an amazing boss. Dude, bro. Sorry for, like, freaking out, dude, but when I was playing it, I was freaking out, like, times 10, dude. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not even, like, a big Mephiles guy, and I was losing my mind because this junk is so cool. It's also just a fun boss. It takes great advantage of the Doom morph, and it's just, it all ties together incredibly well. It is really, really fun. So now we have the final boss. Wow. This is quite the boss, I will say, and it is incredible. This is a 2000s boss by heart. I'm no 2000s fanboy. I want to make that super clear. I think most of these games are pretty trash, to be honest, but they did have a style to them. So I don't blame people for when they played them, especially as, you know, kids or being younger. I don't blame them for being like, wow, that is awesome, because some of these moments are awesome, dude. Like, look at this. This game sucks, by the way, but this was really cool, and this game has that. You're finally fighting some flippin' monstrous, disgusting creature. It's awesome. I'm glad that we're back to this type of stuff, but the games are actually fun now, which is the part that those games completely forgot to do. They forgot to be fun. It's also a pretty substantially long boss, which I'm glad I can say, because I know that, I know this isn't the fastest time ever, right? Like, I majorly fumbled. I was kind of having a tough time with the boss, so it did take me 7 minutes, which is kind of embarrassing, but hey, I'm glad that there's a lot here. So honestly, I'm not complaining. I don't mean that 7 minutes in any sort of bad way. I mean that in a good way, because the boss actually has some meat on its bones. Like, there's actually something there, and that's really cool. This boss also takes great advantage of all of the Doom powers. We have Surf at the start, we have Wing at the end, and then we also have Morph right in the middle in the second half of the first phase. So there you go. That is pretty cool. And dude, this ending, oh my gosh, bro, look at this, bro. We're so back. I know we had been having some cool moments in Frontiers and stuff, but this feels different. Like, even the final horizon, something feels different about what we're having here in Shattered Generations. Something is different about this, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I guess the best way I can sum everything up is that it does have that 2000s final boss energy to it, and I mean that in the best way possible. So, I love this fight, but there's one thing to mention about it, and this isn't even a negative. I'm here to praise it again. I know that sounded like a negative, but the soundtrack's also baller on this boss. We got a All Hail Shadow remix for a final boss. That is so cool. Like I'm saying, it adds on to the 2000s energy. We have an orchestral retelling of the main theme of the game, or the main theme of the character, whatever. Where, once again, the Final Horizon sort of offered that, you know, with the first phase. But that's what I'm saying. This is 2000s in every way, shape, and form. And that is so awesome to see that we're actually getting that type of energy in games that are actually fun this time around. So to continue discussing the soundtrack, it is incredible. It's really good. There are very few levels that I think had like okay OSTs. I think the only stages that, you know, had like alright ones are most of the Act 2s, because most Act 2s are kind of okay, because they try to make them sound more classic-y, if you know what I'm saying. They're more plucky, if you know what I'm saying, especially Chaos Island. Like, listen to this, bruh. Okay, like that sounds super goofy, right? Like it kind of is like, turn it off. But like, to be honest, I kind of like what it goes for because it really sounds like the shooter mini game from Frontiers. And I don't know if that's like intentional or not, but that's what it sounds like. And I like that. That's kind of a cool reference if that was actually what they were going for. So I just had to stop and discuss the soundtrack quickly because it is really, really good. I cannot wait for this to be on Spotify. Please, Sega, give it to me. I need this. Now to go back to gameplay quickly before I discuss the story and Generations, you know, Sonic Generations. I forgot that game exists just like you did, so we'll get to it, don't worry. So I've been bragging about the level design throughout this whole video, right? But I think the biggest thing is that these levels have huge optimization opportunities. Even Generations didn't have it to this degree. For example, my first playthrough of Chaos Island Act 1, which I didn't really like that much. It took me 4 minutes to beat the stage. Well, now, on my best playthrough as of recording this video, it is under 2.5 minutes. That is optimization at its finest. And as I played the level, I was able to cut off 3 seconds. I was able to cut off actually 8 seconds from one of my fastest runs. That is where it is at. Level optimization is real. That first playthrough is not anywhere close to what your final playthrough will actually be. That final run where it's like, that was the run. And I love that fact. Even Generations didn't have that. I would say that, yeah, I mean, you know, every Sonic game has it where it's like, obviously your first playthrough is going to be your slowest, right? Like, you know, duh. But still, this game has that optimization opportunities all the time. Every time I'm playing a level, I find a new skip or I have a new idea. I think, ooh, what if I try this? Ooh, what if I do that? Or I notice something, or I see something I never saw before. It's just, there's always something new. There's always a new way to shave just a little bit off your time. There's always another opportunity, and that is so addicting. It really is. I mean, it is addicting to just keep finding those ways to shorten your time. It's a blast, dude. It really is. So I had kind of been hinting at this for a long time, but I want to discuss the hard mode of this game. The Doom Zone. This is a pretty cool addition to the game, because while I wish that it made the main stages harder, it doesn't do that, which is a shame, but it does create harder variants of certain challenges and hard modes of all the bosses. And the bosses, these are like actual hard modes, okay? Like the Bio Lizard is the easiest of the hard modes. Metal Overlord, you're gonna have a tough time S-ranking that. You can't slip up a single bit. Like I was saying earlier, you cannot slip up nothing. It's gotta be a perfect run almost. Like almost entirely flawless. And Mephiles is flipping ridiculous. It is tough. Unfortunately, there isn't a hard variant of the final boss, but you know, I get that. It's the final boss. It should be its own hard variant, if you know what I'm saying. But you know, it's still a really cool thing that they added this, because, you know, now we have some extra challenges, and these extra challenges that are the hard mode variants are really fun. Some of them kind of suck and are kind of annoying, but like, look at this, dude. This is actually difficult level design. Like, I'm impressed by this. Like, I'm actually impressed by this. I actually died a lot because I really had to be focused on everything I was doing. I couldn't be anywhere near mindless. I had to be actually focused all in on the game. You know, I had to be focused the rest of the game, but this especially had to be all in, completely locked in on the game to get those good S ranks on these. Now, you know, is it the hardest thing ever? No. You know, it's still a Sonic game. I don't expect anything crazy, but this is still really cool, and I would say these are some of the best missions, if not the best missions. So that is what I think of the gameplay and this game's soundtrack. This game is phenomenal in every way in the gameplay. It is so fun. It's ridiculous. I love this game so much, gameplay-wise, but that is not all, because this game also offers a very, very good story. Now, is it the most, like, big-scale story? No, not really. It's kind of small-scale, and I like it for that, if you know what I mean, because we get to see Shadow interact with Gerald and Maria. Just interact, as this whole, like, you know, the Black Arms narrative with, like, Doom trying to, like, take Shadow as his own, like, war weapon, and it's like, it works incredibly well. And the way that they tied it in with Generations was so clever, it's unreal. The fact that he used the fake emerald and gave it to Sonic so that Sonic thought he won, and so that, bro, that's just so clever. And also this cutscene between Sonic and Shadow is one of my favorite Sonic cutscenes ever, dude. This is so cool, bro. This is by far the best version of the moonshot we've ever gotten. Adventure 2's opening doesn't even compare. That junk is so mid in comparison to this, because it's just so goated, bro. I also think the ending to this game is one of the best we've ever gotten in a Sonic game, dude. Shadow just holding Gerald and Maria's hands as they slowly fade away is just, I mean, man, that's depressing, man. Like, and he actually looks sad about it, you know? And he kind of tries to deny it as he runs away, and then you get the teardrop reference, and it's just the music, and then, that is an amazing ending. It really is. It is an incredible ending. It ended in the worst way, but that's what made it great, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, I don't want Gerald and Maria to be gone. You know, that's sad, even for the player, not just for Shadow, because even just the brief, you know, small amounts of time that they really get screen time, you know, just throughout this game, you know, you don't really know them that much because they haven't been around in, like, this is like the first time Maria gets more than like 2 lines in a game. So it's actually cool. Like, I mean, it's like you already build a bond with them so quickly. So seeing them fade away like that, it's like it hurts you, and you know it hurts Shadow. So it's just like, it's a gut punch, even if it's just a Sonic game. Like, I do not know how they pull this stuff off sometimes. Like, it's getting ridiculous out here. Like, it's still a stupid rat. Like, how on earth? And speaking of stories, I think this is a great way to segue over to Base Generations, which I, like everyone else, also forgot existed. Okay. Base Generations, I can't call it a remaster, it's just a port, alright? And they just upscaled the UI, which for me, who I've been playing, you know, the 60 FPS patch on Xbox for a good while now, man, I am incredibly thankful that the UI is not for 720 anymore, because, oh my goodness, it was like, this is what I had been playing with, and then this is what the remaster looks like. So, while yes, they should have done more, I expected more because they called it a remaster, so I expect more of them. This still is an improvement to me, and is still definitely the definitive way to play it. This was also beneficial to PC players, I'm sure, because you don't got to use that crappy launcher, which I have heard horror stories about. So now there is a good, definitive way to play Generations on all the current day consoles. And so overall, that's just a good thing to have. But yeah, okay, back to the story. I don't know why they did this. They decided to rewrite the story in this game. Do not ask me why that is. I don't know if it was because of mandates and they felt like they had to work around new mandates Sega put up. I genuinely have zero clue why this was done. Because, I'm sorry, I like Ian Flynn. I was just bragging about the Shadow Gen story because that is a very well-written story. It's very good. But I swear the Sonic Generations portion falls flat on its face. It is not good. It really isn't. I think this is probably some of Ian's, not worst writing, but it's pretty bad. Like, oh my goodness, like, without the time stones. Like, oh my goodness. It's unnecessary references referencing. The worst part about this is that they never changed any of the animations. The only things that were ever changed was just the lip sync and the dialogue. That is it. None of the cutscenes are done in any different way, so that leads to some interesting results.
Now then, tell me, where is the rest of my island? Sonic!
Did they seriously just imply that classic Sonic ate Angel Island? Oh my gosh. We are not, like, this is so terrible! Like, I don't hate Ian Flynn or anything. It's just, like, this feels like he didn't want to do this. This feels like, it's like, alright, you got like 3 hours, rewrite Generations. It's like, this didn't feel like it had any thought put into it. It just feels unnecessary, because very few things are actually improved in any of these cutscenes. The first thing that was actually improved, I'll give them this, you know, resolution bump should be expected. They also added some extra sound effects to the time eater that, you know, just made it a little more cohesive. And they also made sure in that one cutscene after defeating the Death Egg robot, you do actually see classic Eggman flailing around instead of just him not being there. So yeah, I would say that there are some improvements, absolutely, but apart from that, the dialogue just isn't good. It really isn't. It really is not. I can't be too nice to it, because if you're gonna change it, I expect an improvement, not a downgrade. And so I'm a good bit disappointed by that. I mean, I don't really care that much, because it still is Generation's story, but I'm sorry, this isn't better. This is worse, and I don't know why they went out of their way to do this. I failed to see any reason to do it. Now, I know I've ranted on about this for way too flippin' long. Generations is fine. It's still Generations. It's just upscaled, you know, and that, I mean, I can't complain that much. It's fine enough. You'd be shocked how many people have not played Generations A, or B, have never seen the game at 60 frames per second. I mean, because if you don't got an Xbox Series X or a PC, then yeah, you won't have this game at that frame rate. So this is still a really good thing, but that aspect of it, the rewrite, does kind of suck, so whatever. So, to wrap everything up, Sonic X Shadow Generations is a phenomenal package. Everything about this game it's amazing. It is an amazing game. It is a 2-for-1 deal. While Shadow Generations is a little bit short, and the best way I can describe that whole campaign is that it is short but sweet, and it is 100% quality over quantity, and that is its biggest advantage, but also its biggest flaw. There is so much quality and polish in this game that they really did feel like they had to sacrifice for content, which honestly, I'm kind of fine with. So truly, you have a Generations re-release that runs at 60 FPS and just is upscaled with some bad writing included, and a brand new Shadow campaign that is genuinely one of the best Sonic experiences, if not the best Sonic experience that I have ever had. And so selling all of that for $50 is a steal. This is a crazy deal, dude. Like, insane. I honestly feel like this package has enough to be worth at least $60. I mean, $70 is pushing it, but honestly, I wouldn't blame them if they did that. I wouldn't even be that upset at that. So I encourage you, if you do not know much about Sonic, or if you know a lot about Sonic, I don't care. Anywhere you stand on this franchise, this is genuinely a fantastic video game. No, Sonic is only good in a bubble, none of that crap. This is just a genuinely, I would say IGN was pretty much right. I would say that this game is just a 9 out of 10 video game. In general, out of all games, this is, I would call it a 9 out of 10, and I don't think that's an unfair thing to think. So, if you haven't picked this game up, I encourage you to do so, because it is a blast. So, there we have it. I love this game so much, and like I said, I can't call it my favorite Sonic game. We'll have to see, but honestly, I'm kind of bordering on it, because I have no reason to say otherwise. I just need to replay the game more, you know, maybe run through the campaign another time to get a refresher on it, but yeah, this game is actually fantastic. I am so shocked it was this good. Like, I knew it had the potential to be one of the best Sonic games, if not the best, but it's kind of shocking to see it really live up to everything I thought it would be. I am not disappointed by this game in the slightest. So, I hope all of you have an amazing rest of your day. God bless.